and live? For they discipline us for a short time, as seems best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, so that we may share his holiness. So we get the discipline of the Lord. Now, can anybody come up with any other way God can discipline us, other than what's mentioned here?
Well, I don't know if this answers your question, but I wanted to say this earlier. You use the concept of this as being part of your education. And another word came to my mind is the process of sanctification. We are, you take gold and you put it in fire to purify it. And through our lives after we're saved, we have to go through these trials, these fiery trials, and it purifies us as part of the sanctification process so that we become more spiritually mature. So that would be closely related to what you're talking about in terms of the education.
Right, absolutely. Now there's another concept that hasn't been brought up yet. Can anybody, is there any other way that God actively disciplines us that you can think of?
What comes to my mind is the Lord gives you a blessing.
Hold on, what?
The Lord puts a blessing in your life or opens a door for you and you don't see it, and He just closes that door and removes that blessing from you.
Oh, when He removes it, well, if we don't see it, then we don't know it's been opened or closed anyway, do we?
Later, though.
Oh, well, we might,
You look back and you see.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of the way it is with me. If I hadn't made those investments, I'd be in a better situation than if I would have kept my money. I'd be better off than I am now.
You're looking for something else besides the consequence?
I'm looking at some other consequence. When we talk about discipline, like for instance, when your father disciplined you, you might have got a spanking. You might not have got your allowance. You might, we discuss these various things. The discipline could be education. The discipline could be jail. Discipline could be loss of job because of poor judgment, maybe. Frank, did you have something?
Crowns?
Crowns. A loss of crowns. But that's a futuristic thing. We're talking about a current everyday discipline that could be pardon me?
Depression? How about that? Being depressed because you're convicted?
Okay, I think I'm going to have to give it to you, Tony. That's not exactly what I was looking for, but go ahead, Dwayne.
When God is silent.
Okay.
Sometimes he won't. He makes himself appear silent to you.
I think that's an extremely good one. God can walk away in a sense. I'm not saying walk away in the sense He walks away, but you use the word silence. God could just take the hands off and say, reap what you sow, and that can be a form of discipline. Also, Tony said the concept of depression as a result of something you've done, and I grant you there, but I'm actually looking for one that's actually a little bit more biblically hitting the bullseye on target to exactly what we're talking about, to where we might have an actual verse on it.
What's wrong with the word conviction, Jim? You haven't really commented to the word conviction. And and when we're convicted, that is God disciplining us.
Grieving the Spirit?
I think that'd be worthy to think about whether conviction is discipline or not. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. What were you saying?
Grieving the Spirit.
Yeah, but grieving the Spirit is something you're doing, but when you're doing it, it's something that you should not be doing, so therefore you'd fall under discipline. I'm asking, what is the actual discipline? I'm not talking about what causes the discipline. I'm talking about what actually is the discipline.
The loss of our joy and peace.
Well, that's a good one. Your lack of joy and peace is a active thing that goes along with discipline. I think the discipline that God can take away your peace, He can take away your joy, your hope,
Your sense of fellowship.
your sense of fellowship and hope. Do we have something that's actually maybe a little sharper knife cut? That let me ask you this: if any of you were out of order with God in some way, and God had to discipline you, what form of discipline that God could would you put the hand down until I get to you with a question, please? What form of discipline could God implement on you that you would tend to dislike the most or would concern you the most? Hold on, I think you got it. But if God were to if in other words, there's one thing going to jail. There's another. We talked about all these things, but let's say you knew you did something wrong. Now you know God may discipline you. What are you hoping doesn't happen?
That'd be 1 Corinthians 5:5. Give such a one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Or over in 1 John, there is a sin unto death. I don't say you should pray for it.
Okay.
Take your physical life.
And what about the concept? So what we're talking about is God has the ability through discipline to even take your life.
Take you home.
Take your life, kill you right on the spot. And we have one. That would be the top. We have one right below that. What's the one right below that?
I was gonna say, well, I got punched in the face, and I don't know. I mean, I still wonder what happened, but I might have been doing something
I got
that he didn't like. And I got punched
Yeah,
in the face.
yeah.
Sound like Nebuchadnezzar had
Okay,
one face.
I believe that's a principle that I'll tell you. The punch in the face. Remind me of that in just a second. There's another one right down from his. Now I want you to picture. You got to always in your mind picture the circumstances when you're studying the Bible. Okay, you sin, and you start thinking, now I'm out of order. What could happen to me? What could God do to me? He's thinking death. What would be something else we could think?
Who was it they made go crazy?
Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar, how she went and got sick.
We're gonna be out grazing in
Sick,
the fields.
sick. Where we have our basis for that? The communion table?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so in other words, we could become sick. You could get cancer. There's any numbers of things that God uses, and I think He uses sickness probably as one of the main. Could He use allow demon infiltration? You see, these are some major areas of discipline that can be used to get your attention. Now, one time, you talk about the punch in the face. I was in a situation one time when we were into our deliverance ministry, and we had a sizable shed, which was about 12 by 12, and we'd go into the 12 by 12 with our Christians, and the guy that needed to be delivered would sit in the chair, and then we would cast the demons out of him, you know. And so on this one occasion, this guy wanted to come in, and we told him, he was a young, zealous, prideful Christian, and big guy, big, strong, husky guy. And we told him, we don't think you ought to go in. This is kind of like for elders, and we don't think you want to. But he really pushed. So we said you could come in. So we're right in the middle of this thing, and I mean, this thing's hot and heavy. If you've never been in it, I'm not going to try to explain it to you, but trust me, it gets very, uniquely interesting. And at one point, I noticed this guy goes bam against the wall of the shed, and he's going like this, holding his face, and he's just and I look at him and I just couldn't believe it because the guy just was visible. What happened? Somebody hit me. You know, here he shouldn't have been in there. He pressured us to go in there, and some demon hits him because nobody in the room hit him. Just about knocked him out. And he was a big, rough guy, you know, tough kind of a guy. And so I believe that can be the discipline of the Lord too. I believe that God can. Quite frankly, we don't war against flesh and blood. I'm not going to get off on that kick, but there's many areas if you get out of order with God that God can use to get your attention and to discipline you. Some of the most talented, successfully talented, gifted people that I've ever met in the ministry in over 40 years. Some of the cream of the crop, best of the best that I've ever known in my Christian life are not in the ministry today. Because they got bumped off. They couldn't take the discipline. They grew weary of doing good. And they checked out. Some of these guys could do more by accident in winning people to the Lord than any of us could do on purpose. That's how talented some of these guys are. And they're not in the ministry today. And it can happen to you. And that's why it says pride comes just before the fall. And if it doesn't happen to you, just like I was talking to Reuben tonight, earlier, is that I've seen a pattern of talented people that are set on a mission for God, and God makes it clear to them, they're not getting off that mission. And they're like a Sherman tank, they're like a Rottweiler, they're going for the mission. The devil knows he's not going to get them off that mission, so what does he do? He diverts them into some absurdity. They stay in the mission, but now they've got extra baggage that they're carrying that tends to take their mission down and dissipate the effectiveness of their mission. And so there's all kinds of things that can occur, and some of them may be disciplined, some of them may not be disciplined.